Mike.
What's up, Nick?
The professor of pain.
Right. Yes.
Hey, I need a nickname.
You know, my dad was it's funny you always call me professor of pain. So like the 5 generations before me was all in education. My dad was a professor for 25 years at the University of Tulsa.
So
I'm like the first
to you?
one that didn't go into education. I don't know. I don't teach anything and I don't learn anything. So I don't know where the education gene skipped me, but
that's definitely wrong. You teach a lot of people a lot of things, but I need a nickname, man. I think I got one, but you have to tell me what you think about it.
What is it?
The maestro of manufacturing.
I like it. Let's go with it.
All right. So what is a maestro, Mike?
Master, right?
I think so. Like, I think it's usually a music thing, but I'm not that musical.
Yeah, that's the context I've generally known the word to be.
But just someone who's a master at their craft. So
sure. And you are a master at your craft.
I am doing my best.
We're just trying to figure out what the craft is.
Well, we got some maestros coming in today. I'm excited to introduce them. Why don't you tell us a little bit about like what we got going on today for this episode?
Yeah. So, I think probably most of our listeners are familiar with Hexagon and their, manufacturing intelligence division.
Yeah.
And they've got a big new announcement today. So we've got a couple of guys here to talk about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think Hexagon, first thing that comes to mind is like CMMs and measuring and things like that. But
yeah, for sure.
Since we've gotten closer to the business, there's like so much that they're doing. Like there's such a much larger company than what I thought.
Yeah, the integration of hardware and software that they're doing across, and I like how they framed this division of their company, manufacturing intelligence, right? Because it's so much broader than just metrology or just some software. The way they're integrating a lot of that is just really innovative.
And I know you've talked about like quality being a bottleneck at Hill sometimes,
for sure.
or I guess the quality check, the CMM
well, it's
part
the heart
of
the organization, right? I mean, we have to deliver quality parts, which means that the quality division is going to be the really the heart of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it can quickly become a bottleneck for sure.
What's
Even
your,
with the
what's
latest
your
and greatest
tagline?
tools.
Quality parts on time, every time, or something like that?
You got it. Way to go.
I am that's what I'm a maestro of, remembering slogans and catchphrases and things like that. I never forget them.
Yeah.
So is this part of our Machine Shop MBA series, or is this kind of more of a bonus episode?
Yeah, so we're on a couple week break from the MBA series. While just to get back to some stuff, we've got an exciting announcement to make next week as well. And so with this week, we're gonna we want to announce this new offering from Hexagon. And then next week we've got kind of an internal announcement we're making. So
we could call it spring break.
It's spring break.
It's spring break.
It's spring break.
All right. Well, let's get our guests in here, and we'll kind of introduce what we've got going on and announce the maestro.
Let's do it.
Who do we have with us today?
Shawn, you want to introduce yourself here to the group?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Shawn Thelen. I'm a product sales manager for stationary products here at Hexagon. I've been in this position for about 3 years now. So I oversee anything from bridge CMMs to gantry CMMs to vision systems and aftermarket and upgrades, that sort of thing. I've actually been part of Hexagon or some company that was acquired into the Hexagon group for 29 years now.
Oh my gosh.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I've held various roles through field service and applications. I spent 20 years in sales and sales management. So brought in a breadth of knowledge into this product sales management role here.
And you're in the Mountain Time Zone. So where are you located out of?
Yeah. Just live outside of Denver. Been here for about 2.5 years now. We were prior to this up in the Seattle area for about 15 years.
Awesome. I was telling Mike, whenever I'm in Mountain Time, I'm in Happy Time.
Yeah, you and me both.
And our other guest, so Jörg Deller, is that okay? Did I say it right?
Yeah, this sounds about right. So German enough.
Yeah, you're from my motherland.
Yeah. So, hi, Jörg Deller, hailing from Germany, from Wetzlar, actually, which is a little bit north of Frankfurt. I'm the general manager of stationary measurement devices and machine tool measurement here at Hexagon. I'm basically responsible for all the measuring devices which are too heavy to carry around or inside a manufacturing process already. I'm here in Hexagon since, let me think, 8 years now. In different roles, but actually in metrology since 17 years. So I had an actual job before and I did some real work. So I was an R&D engineer, developed controllers for CMMs for many years in my life. Since later I tried to sell them, was a product manager, helped in service, a little bit of everything. So they made me a general manager at the end. So I'm not good at anything specific, but I can do everything a little bit.
Yeah, I doubt it. I doubt that you're not good at anything specific because I've known my fair share of German engineers and just German manufacturing leaders, and they're always very, very strong. They're always very impressive, especially compared to the morons in the United States. Well, welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, stationary. You kept saying the word stationary. As opposed to what? So what would you call stationary metrology?
Yeah, stationary metrology for us means everything with a measurement device is stationary, so not moving. So we bring the part to the measuring devices, versus our portable metrology is exactly the opposite. We bring the measurement devices to the measurement part. And that's why stationary, everything too heavy to carry around.
And so you've been working on something pretty special here. I keep saying this word MAESTRO. So tell us a bit about like the background behind it, the why behind the development.
The first thing is metrology, especially CMMs, they haven't changed in years, almost in decades, I would say. It's always, we talked a little bit before about this old machine you have in your father's shop. Really impressive, really old, but it's still the same until today. Nothing really fundamentally changed in the last 40 years in CMM. So a couple of years back, we were sitting together with a group of people from all over the world and were discussing, hey, if we could design a CMM nowadays from ground zero, so if CMMs would not exist, what would we do different? And we started here from the customer and looked, what are the biggest challenges? And this is, to name only the four most important, expertise. So we don't have the super skilled workers anymore, the guys with the white shirt coming in, working on a CMM all the day. They are not existing, or not that many are existing any longer.
Yeah, as soon as you said the biggest challenges, I was going to say, okay, people, because that's exactly what we hear universally across the board. And I made the joke about, the morons today, but I think there's some truth to, okay, like obviously it's a joke. There's a lot of smart people in all these countries, but I think there's some truth to like the way we develop people. Yeah. And I was surprised when I was just in Europe a few weeks back. They're dealing with the same problem. And I always associate Germany, Austria with really strong apprenticeship program, really strong trade education. But even over there, they're having a hard time finding the same level of talent that they used to have.
Yeah, that's the same all over the world. I hear the same stories in Vietnam, in Germany, in US, in Mexico, wherever you go, name it, you have the same problem. Mm. And the next topic is companies don't produce the same part for 20 years like they did it in the past. Yeah. They are changing. So also their equipment must be ready to change. And let's face it, a CMM is not really made to be changed over the time. You install it, you run your program with. If you want to do something different, you can retrofit it, but this is quite a massive undertaking.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And productivity. So I think Mike said it before, CMMs are too slow. Measurement is too slow. Very often it's end of the line in one room in the corner. Nobody likes a quality guy because he's slowing down the overall process. So the things needs to be faster. They need to be connected to the end, to the complete system. And this all brings us at the end to autonomy. And yeah, the systems need to reduce operators' influence. They need to be faster. They need to be connected with the overall workflow of the production. And answer to that for us was MAESTRO. Let's start from ground zero. We know that these are the biggest hurdles for our customers. If we can start from ground zero again, how would the system look like? And yeah, our company was crazy enough to allow us to do that. Starting again from ground zero and develop not only a CMM, but a complete measurement system, which can address this with the possibilities of today.
I love that approach. We recently had a show where we talked about the mindset of an entrepreneur, right? And we talked about a lot of what we talked about is approaching things differently, right? And so I love that you guys took the approach of, okay, if we were developing CMM today, if the technology didn't already exist, what would we do now and start from that ground up? So talk a little bit about that process. I mean, because obviously from the first CMM to now, I mean, again, things maybe haven't changed that all that much, but technology has. So how did you guys start just fresh without being trapped inside of what you already know about the space?
It was really starting from the users and really starting with personas. Who are the people which are using our CMMs? And we spent a hell lot of time with it, interviewed a lot of people, and we came down to, I think it was 5 archetypes of people which are using our CMMs. And then
he sounds like a marketing guy right now. He sounds like my kind of guy. I really like that. I got to say, I like how the Europeans think of marketing, because it seems like in the States, marketing is like the guy who does the website or does the digital AdWords or whatever. But when you start like you just said with the persona, and like, okay, how do we group these personas into, like you described, archetypes, and then serve that archetype, serve that persona. I think that's a great way to start, regardless of whether you're developing content for somebody or a product for somebody. So tell us about how you grouped them.
Yeah, and we grouped them at the end. Who are the people? And this is one guy is a white collar guy, so the guy who knows metrology inside out, and he's our go-to person today. So everything what we do today, we're addressing him. But we found out this is maybe 5 to 10% of the people which actually use the CMM, and every year it gets less and less. The much more important personas are the metrology supervisor in the larger company and the actual operator. So these two are coming together. One is operating the CMM, the other one is writing the program and is responsible for the quality. And here what we can see, the ratio is changing. So we have more and more operators and less metrologists they are dealing with.
Okay.
Next one was, we call it the all-rounder here. These are the people normally in small and medium enterprises. So the metrologist, he's loading the program, he's programming it, he's running the CMM, he's interpreting the quality report and everything around it. So the one-man army for the quality. And then the last group, which is very often forgotten, he's not really a user, but this is automation guys, production guys actually. They need to get a production up and running, and quality is just a part of the overall production process. And they want things easy, fast, seamless. They don't care what a CMM does. It's just a brick in the production process in there. And they're working together with people which are doing automation. They also don't care what a CMM does. It's just a piece inside a manufacturing workflow. But what we do today is we are forcing these people to become metrology experts and learning everything about metrology.
Mm-hmm.
So those were our groups we started with.
Yeah, so I love the approach. And then how did you work with Shawn and the team in the United States to develop this?
So the important thing is we need this information from somewhere. We are sitting with a team of product managers and other people here in Europe, but actually my friend Shawn here and his department and people like him all over the world, they are really the hearts. They are giving us the input. And Shawn, maybe you want to fill in how you get in contact with customers and deliver us the information we need to come to the smart ideas what I just introduced.
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of my input came directly from customers. As I said earlier, spent 20 years in the world of sales and sales management. And so a lot of direct experience and feedback from my customers as to what their pain points were. We hear a lot in the world of metrology that a CMM is a necessary evil, right? So most shops would prefer not to have a CMM if they could avoid it.
Yeah, they just come off the machine perfect every time. That'd be great.
That's right. Exactly. Why do I even need this? My machine's perfect, right? So you get feedback from customers directly, and that's great. And then in my current role, reaching out to other sales leaders across the United States, because my feedback was specifically in the West Coast, Northwest region. And so, now I get the feedback from the other regions across the United States and Canada and Mexico as well. And so you get all of that feedback and you push it up to the decision makers and say, this is what's being asked for.
So really like what we would call it at Hennig is like our voice of the customer program.
Exactly.
Kind of figuring out how to distill that into themes and kind of attach that to different personas or archetypes of people, and then make sure whatever we're creating is serving that category of person.
Yep.
So Mike, you have CMM equipment,
sure.
You have metrology equipment. Hill has how many employees again?
40-ish.
So out of those 40, those that are responsible for quality, do they fit into any of those archetypes Jörg explained?
Yeah, no, actually, as you guys were speaking, I was like, yeah, you nailed the customer experience, because we do see the CMM kind of as a necessary evil, right? Like we have to have it when we talk quality with a current or potential customer. That's one of the first questions they ask, right? Do you have a CMM? Yes, we do. I've been actually internally challenging our team a great deal the last 6 months to use ours more, right? Because we tend to default to it, to use it when we have to, rather than to make our workflows better. Mm-hmm. It's more like, well, that's the only way we can measure this, so we're going to use it in that case, but not all the time, right? So we've had a lot of conversations in the last several months about, really pushing ourselves to use it more, to have it set up for even like our in-process checks and so forth. I would say historically we've used it kind of only in first article type situations, and especially if it was required, right? And so we would use the CMM in the corner when we have to, and we would use other methods. Like we have one of your laser arms, like we'll default to that before we'll go to the CMM.
Mike, is that because you don't have the white coat metrologist?
It really is. Yeah, it's a lack of training. It's a lack of, it's mostly a lack of training probably over the years. But we're really trying to change that internally to where it's a desired part of our manufacturing process instead of a required part of our manufacturing process.
I think it's so hard to have someone who's like truly an expert in all the different facets of what it takes to make quality parts come out the door on time every time.
Yeah.
Especially today. So to have like a metrologist and like an expert programmer and an expert machinist, and I think what we ought to be doing is trying to build people who are well-rounded and can do a bit of everything in the shop. I talk a lot about like how cross training is so important for like that lights out shop, because having a specialist available all the time in every category that you would need one is just really, really hard. But having a cross trained staff where they can, each person can do any part of the process really helps you to like get your shop set up so that when you leave for the night, it can run. Do the finicky stuff during the day, and when you leave for the night, it can run. Hopefully you get a lot of free lights out hours.
Yeah, interesting enough, in our situation right now, where again we really do have a very direct effort to integrate the CMM more in our processes. And interestingly enough, there's a 19-year-old that works for me that has kind of embraced it the most, and is really digging in and learning the programming and creating the programs to utilize our CMM solution more than we have in the past. So I think, again, back to, the cross training and developing a younger workforce. I mean, it is one of those things that's different, right? Mm-hmm. And you can utilize some technology to upskill and learn some things that maybe is exciting to a younger demographic.
that key word you use is integrating. When it's integrated into part of your process and it's not this external sore thumb, necessary evil. It's like, all right, we make the part, and then it goes to quality over there in quality land where the quality people know how to do stuff.
Right.
Instead of it just being part of the process of getting that part out the door. And I think the OEMs, the builders, like these guys have a lot to do with how easy it is to integrate it into your process. So
yeah, for sure.
You were talking about your work on like control systems for CMMs in your career, and are they speaking the same language? Are they working in G&M code and things that the machinist is familiar with? And over time, how have you and your team worked to make it easier to integrate it in the overall manufacturing process?
Yeah, that was super interesting, by the way, what Mike just said, because maybe I pictured you when we had some series during Maestro development. You said a lot of stuff, which is super, super interesting. And
I think it just, it points back to you guys really did nail down that those users that you have. I mean, when you were describing that, I'm like, yeah, that's us.
Yeah.
I mean, that to a T.
Nick just said something super important, because a CMM controller is different from anything else in the market, from any other controller. It is a complete different world, but it doesn't have to. And one of the major things we started with when we designed this new machine or this new system was the CNC-like CMM. How do we get both worlds closer together? And I will not say we are completely there, but we made a big, big step forward into that. And here maybe what is really important about Maestro, it's an all-digital CMM solution. So it's really about bringing things together, make them as fast, easy, connected, and growing, so adaptable as possible for the future, and bring it closer to the machine shop. And here it helps a little bit that I'm also responsible for machine tool measurement, so working with CNC machines, because we look at this world now from both directions. And we also look into how can we connect both worlds together, and working with similar workflows here.
So important. If someone says, yeah, I'm a programmer at a machine shop, it's like, well, what kind?
Yeah.
Can you program the CMM? Can you program the machine tool? Most shops today have some form of automation or are thinking about it. So can you program the robot? And you see this, like, especially on the automation side, you see the robotics companies working to get closer to like the code that a machinist understands. And obviously on the metrology side, you're working on that too. It reminds me of my cousin who studied in Austria, and he knew German fluently. His father was a German teacher, so they taught him German first. And then he goes to Austria, and he's like, that's not German. I don't know. I can't even understand the teacher in school, but it was closer, right? It wasn't like Chinese or something like that. So it seems like that's kind of what's happening, is the languages are getting a bit closer together, and they're getting a bit easier to understand, kind of more of a universal language that is easier to integrate.
Exactly. And I know exactly the feeling, because like 15 years back, I moved to Switzerland for a while. And I had exactly the same experience.
What do they call it? That's Schweizerdeutsch?
Schweizerdeutsch.
Yeah, forget it. I heard that's not German either.
No, it's somehow close.
Yeah. So we're bringing these languages closer together. And how exactly are you doing that? Let's get kind of into the weeds a little bit. How are we making it so that these systems are able to communicate a bit better?
Yeah. So it's different things. It's on one hand, it's workflows. So how you work with the system. So for example, what happens if you press specific buttons? What happens if you put it to different modes? So they are similar to what a machine tool does, but it's also about connectivity. So we share the data between all the different systems in here. It's made for bidirectional communication. So you don't need to know it's a CMM. It comes out of the box more or less with automation interfaces, which can talk bidirectional to MES systems, to whatever you want. It also goes down to uptime, let's say. CMM is very often the weak spot in a production cell, because it's not made for running endlessly, or it simply is not as robust built as most of the machine tools. But also here we made some major improvements. I would love to give you hard numbers, but the tests are not finished yet.
Mm-hmm.
But having statements like MTBF and other things like what is the failure rate of your machine. Nobody can give you this today on a CMM. We want to use that down to the user experience. And here we want to go. We want to take away even the programming and go to a no-code environment. And that's why I talk about a metrology system. It's not only the hardware, but it's a combination of hardware and software, which were designed together, which comes with a digital twin of the CMM system. We use our own digital twins and in our own programming environment. And here you load in your CAD. So CAD needs, of course, a certain quality and so on. It needs to have the data inside. But then it can program automatically your part program according to the capabilities of your machine, because the digital twin is known to both parties. And all of that, we try to bring things together, make it more seamless and make it easier.
Okay, so the digital twin is a bit like the translator.
Yes.
So the twin knows both languages. You can upload the CAD and it can speak machine tool and it can speak metrology system. And for the user, you just need to know the one language.
Yeah.
Is that a fair way to say it?
Yes.
So describe how you would set up a no-code system versus the heavy code system from the past.
So today, let's say we start point blank with a CMM. You put all your stuff on the CMM. You put your changer rack, you put your sensor, your wrist, and all of this stuff together. And then the first thing you do is you open PCDMIS, open config, and you click, okay, I have now this wrist with this sensor, this stylus, and so on. Somewhere here is a rack. I need to configure all of this rack, blah, 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 blah. Then you start calibrating a lot of stuff. So to make it known to the system. And then you start programming and you load in your CAD file and then you start, okay, I need to measure this circle, and you program all of that. Now let's switch to Maestro. What it does, it knows what it is from the beginning. So all active parts are known. And I like to see it a little bit as a USB of metrology. So you put in a sensor. The sensor tells, hey, I'm a laser scanner. This is my serial number. I have run 27 hours so far, blah, blah, blah. Okay, set up. You put in your rack. Okay, I'm a rack. I have this and this tool changers. These are my positions I have. You put in new ports, they show up automatically. So if you open Environment Builder the first time, you see your CMM is populated without you doing anything, because the system knows what it is, besides the tip, because the tip is a simple piece of metal and ruby ball at the moment. So that's a little bit difficult yet to identify. Yeah, and then this is the setup process. And for the programming, we know that's our machine. We open our Metrology Mentor web surface. We load in the CAD. This is filled with PMI, so with the inspection data, so we know what is to be inspected. Load it up, say we want to have it for this machine, we want to measure that part. Magic happens, and after a couple of minutes, you get an inspection program for your part for this specific machine. And the cool thing is, if you have a second machine, and let's say the second machine has a different set of sensors, you say, I want this part for this machine and that machine, and you get two different part programs which are designed for your machines, which you can use it for.
Wow. So you talked about like what MES, you said the MES system, and it integrates with the MES. What business metric, what KPI are we trying to achieve or trying to improve through that connection to the MES?
At the end, uptime, availability, planability, all of this stuff. So we really want a system which is plannable. So in our marketing stuff, we have a great circle about the smart factory, from planning over setting up, producing analytics, and so on. And basically, we want a traceable system. We know in which condition it is. We know when it probably will fail, or we know at least the uptime. Maybe in future, we will also tell you before when it will fail. And then it gets plannable, traceable, and you always know where you have capacity. Now think about multi-sites, or you have more than one CMM. you're always using this one CMM for this one task. The other CMM is idle because you use it normally for other tasks. Now you have an overarching planning system. You don't need to reprogram everything. All the data are coming together in the same data lake anyhow. So let's plan the production from the top and not from the bottom.
Okay, so if every CMM under your umbrella, could be 3, 4, 5 different sites, can measure any job because it's kind of got this centralized hub of intelligence, that I could see being like a huge reliever of a bottleneck. And that's what you guys are going for?
Yes.
So Shawn, your customers in the States, this kind of uptime, a lot of people use the word OEE, is that what they're asking for? Are they saying, hey, I don't want to just, I think oftentimes people just measure spindle utilization and say, hey, the spindle was running this much. But, for what I feel like is some pretty obvious reasons, spindle utilization can be like a vanity metric. You could be like showing how effectively you're making scrap. So,
right.
So is this something that you're hearing from your customers is like in demand? I wish I had kind of like I wish my CMMs were more universal and could accept any job, and I wish I could centralize it.
Yeah, for sure. It's a big request because more and more customers want to know how productive their assets are, right? What's their return on investment for this product? Do I need to buy another one, right? We already talked about the CMM being a necessary evil. Well, more and more customers are accepting CMMs for what they are, and used properly, they can get a lot of very useful information out of them and reduce their scrap and improve their quality. And all these things are just super helpful to them in the end. It's just getting over that initial hump of, oh my gosh, I have to use a CMM.
Yeah.
All right. But the customers that we're seeing that really adopt a CMM and really put it into play the way it's meant to be are tracking things like uptime and how much it's used and what parts are being used where. And so having this digital connectivity to see what assets are being used, how often, and where they can better fit parts where maybe this machine's idle and this one is normally the one that measures that part, but now I can move it over here. I think it's only going to help them be that much more productive and get parts out the door quicker.
Yeah, OEE, just learning a lot about it lately. It's this formula of availability times performance times quality. So without some sort of quality measuring solution, you can't even get the OEE. There is no way to achieve that metric. And then you're forced to just operate with vanity metrics like spindle utilization, which can be a helpful piece of the puzzle. But if availability is the proportion of time a machine or process is actually running versus what it was planned to run, and then performance is how often it's operating at its full capacity, and then quality is what really matters. Like to Mike's slogan at his shop, it's the percentage of good products produced compared to the total products produced. Now you can get OEE. So how do you get that without some sort of measuring solution like a CMM?
Yeah.
I think you probably don't. So
it's very difficult. I've seen customers over the years do, homegrown spreadsheets where they try to track things and it works, but it's painful, right? And, even today we have a solution to help track asset management and that sort of thing. But Maestro is just going to make it even easier going forward.
Yeah, that integration. I mean, the availability, the performance, and the quality are like oftentimes 3 different systems, or at least 2 different systems. And so if they're not talking to each other, and if you're doing it like manually or filling it out on like a manual timesheet or even putting it into a spreadsheet, you get data, but you don't necessarily get insight. And
100% correct.
Data without insight is just confusing and wasteful.
So you guys just announced this week. Can you build the visual for, and we'll point listeners to your release and the website and stuff, but, kind of build the visual for, if I'm sitting here with a traditional CMM and a traditional environment like I currently have, what changes am I going to experience on a day-to-day basis and so forth, just at the most, kind of the highest level if I go to Maestro? I mean, what does that look like compared to my current environment?
Okay, so First thing you may realize is there is a display on the machine. So the machine tells you right away, hey, I'm ready, I'm measuring, oh, temperature is not correct, or whatever it is. So it clearly talks to you. So if you take a closer look, the next thing you will realize there is a camera, we call it the smart machine eye, which is always attached to the machine. So it records what is happening on the machine, not in the machine shop, on the machine. And if anything happens, for example, if an error happens, the machine hits a part or whatever, automatically recording is triggered. So you can see what was going wrong. Didn't we close the fixture? Was the part in the wrong position? Is there a human mistake? You can
see. It's like a dash cam.
Yeah, exactly. You can see what happens, and also important, you can share this and all with a Hexagon service department, and they can judge immediately. Okay, this was a serious crash. We need to send somebody in. We need to correct the angles or whatever. Or yeah, okay, most likely you're good to go. Just calibrate all the probes and everything is fine again. But these things are much easier possible. Next, you will realize is it's the fastest machine in the world. So it's definitely way faster than anything what we did before. And I'm proud to say that our current Global S is maybe the most, throughput-driven machine which is on the market. We are not yet finished with all the tests, but what we saw last week was outperforming ourselves by 25-30%, depending on application use case, of course, but usual machine part, we had 25-30% last week. We will do more tests.
So what goes into the increasing the speed? Is it just moving along the axes quicker, or is it part of the digital side of it?
It's all of it. So it's really designing a system from the ground, of course, and we played this game for 40 years now. We make the machine a little bit quicker, we make the acceleration higher, blah, blah, blah. At the end, we are on a point where it doesn't really materialize in throughput any longer. There are all the small handbrakes what the system has today. So you move in like crazy, then you stop. The machine thinks for a second, then it takes a touch point, goes out, thinks again for a second, moves to the next point. It doesn't sound like a lot, but if you take 200-300 points per part program, which is easily the number you do normally, it ends up to serious time.
Mm-hmm.
Also other things like we can synchronize the movement between the wrist, so between the articulated head and between the machine. So it's not like a 3+2 machine as today. You can use it in a full 5-axis move. Then we lock it in because it gives you higher accuracy while measuring and start measuring. But we did a test just last week on one part, which took before with synchronized moves like 2 minutes. All we did is we removed the synchronized moves and did it in the traditional way. Okay, let's move out, change the angle, come back. And immediately this machine took 2 minutes and 50 seconds. So, and there's a lot of these things. And if you really, and this is back to the beginning, thinking about, okay, there are no handbrakes, there are no boundaries. Let's think it new. There are a lot of things which we can do better today, but we cannot do it on traditional CMMs because they are just built what they are built with. They have the same interfaces since the 80s, and we are just adding more and more stuff to it.
Mm-hmm.
So by reduction, we were able to do much more.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm coming at this industry from more of an automation perspective. And one of the things that we do is like automated pallet delivery systems for like a 5-axis mill, for example. And one of the biggest things that we get asked is, what about in-process inspection? And so, you're not there anymore. You've worked all day setting up the cabinet with whatever 40 pallets. You hope it runs all night. You show up the next day and you've got quality parts that can get to the customer on time every time if you're Hill, right?
Yeah.
And so there's kind of like two CMM oriented solutions. One's ideal and the other one's pretty great. So let's say on your 40 pallets you got maybe 5-6 different jobs. And your part comes off the machine, it goes into the inspection system, and something's off. Ideally, best case scenario, it's able to like talk to the machine and set some offsets and fix the problem and continue on and finish the rest of those pallets. But as like a plan B, or, not best, but better than just shutting down, it could at least set it off to the side and say, this is off. We can't continue with these parts. Let's run the other parts. Is Maestro going to make that solution that anyone who's involved in automation is going after easier to achieve for someone who's maybe on the automation side of this overall process?
So it moves in the right direction. We will be not completely there yet. Let's say there are scenarios where we can build this up with other Hexagon solutions together also. So CAM software and so on by feedbacking the loop here. That's a project. We are happy to help everybody who wants to set up something like that. But even on the smaller part yet, so today it's very often, if you want to make automation to a CMM, you need to learn CMM as said before. You have special interfaces, and a lot of people which work in automation are telling me, I would never touch this thing. Mm-hmm. I have no clue what you want from me.
I already had to learn the robot, the machine tool, and now you're asking me to learn a third language?
Exactly. And that's why we turned it around and made it standard. And QTT is our default output in here. So really putting it to industry standards. We have a great demo application with Node-RED where I can play on my iPhone. I can start the CMM, see the results, and start the next job and stuff like that. But we are also able to talk like that to all the other systems around, to the robots and so on. So, and this comes in as a standard. You can extend it to, you need the automation capabilities maybe a year after the purchase. Okay, then let's set it up. No problem. Everything is in there.
Okay, so it makes it easier to connect all those dots that I described. The language is closer to being able to communicate the way I described. Yep. That's awesome. I mean, once that's a reality for a shop where you don't even need a person tending the machine for it to correct itself. I mean, once you can achieve that, you are making a lot of chips and you're making a lot of money.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. So is this available, this Maestro, is this available today? Is it being released soon? You maybe already answered that, but when can we start to see this in the market?
So from today, so 6th of May, you can see it in Germany at the Control Show, which is, I think, one of the world's largest control fairs. So here we will reveal it to the world. Then from Hexagon Live, which is end of June, something like that. Shawn can for sure help me with the real date. We will accept orders, and after that, we will start delivering. It will take a few weeks. So we will first produce it in Germany and later extend it to worldwide also production.
And Mike and I are both going to be at Hexagon Live. So hopefully we come back with some money.
That's great. And we will see there.
So it's in Las Vegas. That makes what I just said make sense.
Yeah.
Shawn, will you be there?
I'm not sure yet. I have asked. I was not at the last one, but there's a good chance I'll be at this upcoming one. So the dates are June 16th through the 19th.
Yeah, I'm excited for that, for sure.
Yeah, that should be a great show.
So Mike, any final thoughts from your side?
Well, I mean, again, kind of back to the original of this the original part of this conversation. I mean, I think the way you described how you went about this, I mean, you really did describe my shop and the way that we look at the CMM, at least. I mean, I wouldn't say we look at inspection that way, but as far as the CMM itself goes, it definitely is feel like, okay, well, we have to use it. And, bringing something to the table that would make it, less of a bottleneck in our entire supply chain or our entire manufacturing chain. I mean, that could be critical. I mean, it could be game changer.
Well, I think he described your persona and personas at Hill, and then mine as well, when he listed out the 5, because, everything's just part of this process of getting quality parts out the door. And you could be the fastest, the most efficient in 4 out of the 5 steps. But if you're super slow in the 5th step, that's like the only one that matters. Anyone in lean, that's the critical path. That's the bottleneck. Like, focus all your energy on that, because it doesn't matter how incredible you are at this if that's the problem.
Right.
And so a lot of times for a lot of shops, that's what inspection is. They're great at making parts off the machine, and then it goes into this bottleneck land. And for their customer, they don't know the difference. They get the lead time they get. And so if you think kind of every step in the process and what it takes, this my takeaway is this integration that they're creating. That's the word for me. Is like it's getting more and more connected, more and more easy to integrate, more and more speaking the same language, easy to use, and that's exciting because that gets more parts out the door more efficiently, more effectively.
Yeah, we've internally we've literally been on this kick for a good 2 or 3 months where we've identified that the inspection has become our bottleneck, right? Like when I first bought Hill 8 years ago, there was other bottlenecks, and as we fine tune all those things, we've reached a point now where inspection is our bottleneck, and this sounds like a type of solution that could help clear that for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to hopefully see both of these guys at Hexagon Live, but definitely the technology. It'll be fun to be in Vegas with Mike.
Yeah.
Learn a little bit about everything that Hexagon has going on. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today and teaching us what you're bringing to market. It's always cool to see like the game changers, the people on the bleeding edge of what's happening in our industry. And we're so blessed, Mike, to be able to like kind of be the first to know.
Learn this stuff. Yeah, we've talked about before, this is like our cheat code, right? Like we get to learn about all this cool stuff kind of before everybody else and get to tell everybody about it. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I'm excited to see like how we can utilize this and more of a lights out solution for manufacturers. How can we more effectively connect the metrology and the in-process inspection to the overall, throughput equation. And that's what's exciting for me. So guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen.
So I don't know if they say this in Germany, but in the United States, we always say the same saying. And I think we talked a lot about it today. It's if you're not making chips,
you're not making money.
Bam.